Okay, look, I'm not trying to piss anybody off, so I'm just going to say this and then we can talk about it. Trauma causes addiction. All right. That's the source and the seed of all addiction. And I'm going to go into and talk about why. And if that upsets you, I'm sorry. I'm saying it like it's a fact because for me, as I've gone down the journey of recovery, it has become a fact for me, and understanding it that way has really improved the way that I live my life, and it's also improved the way that I engage in the 12 steps. I'm a big fan of the 12 steps. I've used the 12 steps my whole life. So let's get into this. So why do I say trauma causes addiction? Let's get into what addiction is and what its purpose is. So, we have all these sort of physical allergy ideas around addiction. And I'm not saying that those are wrong. I think we really can get hooked on physical substances without question. And I think we can even get hooked on our own psychopharmacology. We can get hooked on experiences like gambling and compulsive shopping, right? These highs. And we can get down into experiences of lows like chronic under-earning and these kinds of things that are more like heroin, etc., right? So I'm not denying that there's physical addiction. So hopefully that settles a lot of it. But what I'm saying is the real cause, the real reason that people reach for those things to begin with, and the reason they stay in there is because there is pain that is undiagnosed. And anybody who's an addict, I think, can pretty realistically say, as they've recovered, that they used their drug to numb out. And they used their drug to numb out from feelings, right? I mean, that's pretty safe to say. It's like, there are terrible things and we don't want to feel them. And so this is where we get into what is the drug actually, or the behavior actually for. And so it's to numb out. This is the point of every addiction, is to numb out from the pain. But what's the pain and where does the pain come from? That's the very interesting thing. We need to get down into that. And then now I think here's probably the most interesting thing about this is, so when it comes to what are we powerless over, okay, we may be powerless over the substance, but more indirectly, we're powerless over the fact that our nervous system has chosen this substance. Like for myself, when I was a young kid of 8 and I was in a household with a violent father, I reached for food because that's what was there. I suppose we had a whiskey bottle in there somewhere, but that's not what I reached out for. So I don't know how much genetics play into it. Both of my parents were overeaters, but that's what I found to numb out because I could not handle that pain, the terror that I had of he was going to kill me, right? And so that's where it started for me. So the interesting thing when you start to look at, where does this pain come from for each of us, it's very interesting and it's very unique. But generally what I found is this pain, this trauma comes from a traumatic moment in childhood. Wow, who knew? But it's not the moment that happened in childhood that's the real issue. It's what happened inside of the child and the child's mind that was the real trauma. So I'll give you an example from my life. So when I was 3, my dad and his best friend went and bought this awesome set of slot cars. And they were vintage Corvettes, and they raced them around the track, and they were incredible. And I walked over to pick one up, and my dad said, "Don't touch those." Now, it's like he said it firmly, but I wouldn't even say he said it meanly, right? And that little kid mind that I had then when I was 3 said, he cares about those cars more than me. He doesn't love me. I don't matter. Did he say any of those things? No, he did not. But that's what I heard and felt and believed. And those beliefs lived inside my system for the next 50 years. And they controlled the way that I related to other people, as in I'm not worth it and I don't matter. I walk around, how come I'm saying these great things and nobody cares, right? These things become sentences for us, and they're also attached. So there's phrases, and they're also attached to really strong emotions. The hurt that I felt at being worthless, that incredible pain and suffering, that lives in there. Now, the way this works, and psychologists tell us this, is Children cannot process that kind of pain. They do not have the infrastructure built up yet. It takes years and years, probably into your 20s, before you can really start to feel these feelings. So what do kids have to do? They have to repress it. That's it, because otherwise the system will be overwhelmed with the pain and it will kill them. That's just how it works. So, okay, so here's all this pain. So where does it go? It gets buried and it gets repressed, but it lives on inside of me as a truth. And so now, anytime something comes up where I feel ignored or some girl doesn't like me or something like that, it's, I don't matter. And I get completely depressed and hopeless and I feel unlovable. Does any of this sound familiar? You have your version of this. And I say this to you, if you're a human being, you have your version of this. You may have had wonderful parents. You may have had an idyllic childhood, but I guarantee you, the places where you are blocked in your life, there are some messages there, and these messages are coupled with pain. And that's what the trauma is. The trauma is not what happened to you. Yeah, my dad beat me when I was younger, but that didn't leave any lasting scars. It was the emotional pain and the emotional trauma and what I believed about myself that caused the real pain. And that's what causes us to reach out for drugs and different things to numb out that pain. And so what we're really powerless over is we're powerless over the trauma. And by extension, the drug. So now what's beautiful about this is we can work the steps around this because we're powerless over. So let's say a lot of people have fear of abandonment. It's just like, no one's going to be there for me or they're going to leave. Right. And it's this terror that lives in people. And of course they mask it and you can't see it on them, but it's there. And it probably is for some of you who are listening to this, a good portion. A lot of people are dealing with that. And so you're powerless over that. And that's a block in your life. And that block is manifesting somehow. It may manifest as an addiction. It may manifest as something that is an addiction that doesn't look like an addiction. You may be working really hard all the time to try to prove yourself. And you don't realize that you have an addiction to trying to prove yourself. But the reality is you're powerless over the truth of this idea. And here's the other part. You have been running from it your whole life. If you stop and you look, you will see that the terror of not getting the job, which equals the abandonment, has been with you since you were 3 or 4 or 5. And if you can't remember an earlier instance and you only remember high school or college, this fear of, oh no, they're not going to like me, I'm not going to be included in the club, all that means is it was so painful in your childhood that you just haven't remembered it yet. Right? It doesn't mean it's not there as a child. And if you want to know how you felt as a child, look and see how you felt now. Because I'll tell you one thing, your childhood is not over, right? That little kid that got trapped in that closet and has been terrified ever since is still there. And got bad news for you, they're running your life. And so these are the blocks that I talk about in my free online community that you can come check out. And we work at healing the blocks. Now, I love the 12 steps and I can work on healing these blocks and these traumas via the 12 steps, right? Because it's what we're really powerless over or not. It's up to you, right? It really is up to you. The free community that we have speaks both languages. You don't need to be in 12 step. You can be in 12 step, but you can start to recognize how powerless you are over the intensity of these feelings and how they're running your life. And so what step 2, so step 1 becomes, I see that I'm powerless over it. I see that I've been running from it my whole life. I've been running from it. I've been trying to fix it. I've been trying to control it. I've been trying to get it away from me. And none of those things have worked because you'll see that terror and that fear of abandonment or whatever your issue is just as strong as it was at age 5. And when you get to that point where you're finally ready to realize, oh my gosh, this thing has been haunting me my whole life, then you start to realize how powerless you are over it. And you start to become willing to, guess what? Stop fighting it. Stop fixing it. Stop pushing it away. And just allow it to be. And this is where I'm approaching this more from a 12-step standpoint, but this is where step 2 became very real for me in terms of I let go. Like in the 12 and 12, the instructions for this are to relax and take it easy. Allow God to come in a little bit at a time. And if you're not religious, it's okay. It doesn't matter. But what we start doing is we start noticing and watching and feeling this pain. And we sit with this child inside of us that's in so much pain, and we sit with them like a loving parent would. We just hold them and we're just there. And what we're really doing is we're bringing our presence to this feeling. We haven't before because we've been lost in the feeling and we've been running from it. And so this bringing our presence to it is the same thing as inviting God or the universe or higher power into these feelings. And guess what it does? It changes us. It starts to heal it. We are not capable from our terrified ego of fixing any of this, but that presence in the universe can, and it does. And it restores us to sanity right there in step 2. Miraculous. Miraculous. And then in step 3, we come out of that with a clarity, and now we're able, because we're more clear, to take action in the direction that our higher powers want us to. So this is a new understanding of the steps that has emerged for me, and this new understanding of what it is we're really powerless over. And so this is why I say, and so for me, in the last 5 to 6 years, the amount of things that I have become free of go way beyond addictions, into fear of deadlines, into neediness, all of these things. I'm applying the steps to all of these things, right? And they are vanishing from my life, just like it says in the big book. We will be restored to a position of neutrality, and that's what I find happening with all of these things. So I urge you, to just come and check out the free community, or just post questions and ask me questions about this. And we can have a conversation. You can book a one-on-one just welcome call with me if you want to talk about this further. If you want to start to understand recovery in a deeper way, and this is also good to be honest, for people who've been in program for 15 or 20 years, and it's like you're doing everything right, but you're not getting quite as happy as you should be. I kind of call this recovery 2.0. This is taking it to the sort of next level. So look down in the descriptions below. Please, if you like this video, like and subscribe, and just check out what we have to offer. There's a free community, and you can learn all about how to start to remove these blocks from your life in a very real and tangible way, such that they don't bother you forever. So check that out and make sure you take advantage of these free tools. Cheers.